I lucky or what? They drew straws at the State Board of Elections back on April 2nd for ballot position. And I kept telling people in the campaign that I was going to be first on the ballot. They said, no, you're not. There's 6 straws at the first 6. I said, no, I'm going to be first. And I was first. And you know why? Because I married her and I knew I was the luckiest guy. So thank you very, very, very much for coming tonight. It's one of the most amazing parts about this campaign is how humbling it is. How 12 weeks ago we can start and jump into this race, think, well, this will be an adventure, this will be an important part to serve, but I never guessed that in 12 weeks we would have so many people come together to create a community of people who cared and worked hard and loved and decided to change the future. So thank you so much for being part of this community. And I'd like to say that the reason, a long time ago, maybe from my mother, I learned that we're put on this earth to build something larger than ourselves, to give back, to serve others. I know that's why you're here tonight, and that's why we're here also. Just briefly, let me touch on some of the important issues in this campaign. Number one, we have to build a new American economy. We have the greatest income inequality in American history. We have a tipped wage that hasn't been changed since 1991. 15 million people will get a raise if we raise the minimum wage. We have 600,000 unskilled manufacturing jobs we can't fill. And every one of us has children living in our basement, grown children, because they can't find a job. We really have to rebuild an American economy post-globalization. Second, we have to do something about climate change. It is the great challenge that faces our children. And there are many things that we can do. I mean, we can start with a national carbon tax. We can start by not building the Keystone Pipeline. We can start by banning fracking in the George Washington Forest and thinking about fracking everywhere. Number 3, we have to take care of our federal workers. The government is to make our lives better. And it doesn't make any sense when we take the government workers who serve every one of us and freeze their incomes for 3 years, shut down government, do sequester, and everything else.
Thank you, Don.
Last year, there were 11,078 gun homicides in America. 30,000 gun deaths, if you include suicides and accidental shootings. Someone has to finally stand up to the National Rifle Association and say enough. And that's the simple things. Comprehensive background checks, close the gun show loophole, ban high-capacity magazines, and for God's sakes, let lawyers sue gun manufacturers and gun sellers if there's a problem. 7.5 million people have signed up already for private health insurance under the American ACA. We're just starting, but I don't know how, finally, the richest country in the history of mankind is moving towards giving health care for every American. And let me also say that when I was lieutenant governor for 8 years, I did everything I could to stand up against parental consent and parental notification laws. But looking just at transvaginal stuff last year, the battle is not over. Ken Cuccinelli's changing the regulations for clinics. The battle is not over. And I want to be with you to stand up firmly for a woman's right to choose from now and forever. I was talking to my brother yesterday. We have more than half of the workers in our family business were born overseas. They work hard, they're smart. I'm not used to quoting Jeb Bush, but last week he did say that we need to look at so many American immigrants who come as an act of love. Half of the GDP in most Central American countries are transfer payments from jobs here in the United States. We need to create a real path for citizenship for these hardworking Americans. And I'm so proud of our Attorney General and of hardworking Virginia political leaders like Adam Evan, who for years have worked on marriage equality. And we finally now have it in Virginia, and it's sweeping the nation, sweeping the world. And I want to be with all of you in standing for the human rights of every single person.
Yeah.
But I heard a long time ago that You know, we only ever really learn through role models, through finding somebody, a mother, a father, a grandmother who inspires us and changes us. And I have one terrific role model for me, for Megan, for my family here tonight. You know, we were lieutenant governors together, and I'm very fond of lieutenant governors. And in January of 2003, we heard him speak at a little free event over in McLean. And we were sort of fishing around for 2004 presidential candidate, and we walked out and said, "This is our guy. We want to work for Howard Dean." And there were three reasons. Number one, he was the most articulate, ardent, angry, powerful voice against the war in Iraq. Number two, he was a doctor, and he stood up and said, the richest nation in the history of the world should have health care for all. Costa Rica has health care for all. And number three, he was the first governor in the nation to bravely sign a marriage equality bill. And did we have fun on that campaign or what? And here it is, it's 10, 11 years later. And he was right. The Iraq War is the greatest strategic disaster in American history. We're finally moving to health care for all, and we finally have a marriage equality for all. Governor Dean. But there are other subtleties. One of the things I love about Howard Dean is he's a long-term thinker. I mean, he doesn't think just about the next election or the next 5 years. And let me give you a couple of examples. I was his treasurer. I get none of the credit, but I was there at the birth of small dollar fundraisers. And, you know, in the light, he must have been looking ahead saying, someday there will be a Citizens United, someday there will be a McCutcheon. We had to have a counter role model where a campaign is funded by tens of thousands of people giving $10 and $20 and $25. Thank you, Governor Dean. He was really the first political leader that I've ever worked for where the campaign wasn't about him. Remember, he kept saying to us, you have the power, the people power campaign. It was never about, this is the most ego-free man I've ever met. Old clothes, old car, he lives in his own old house. You know, there's none of the, look at me, I'm powerful, look at me, I'm important. He always made it about us and about what we could do. And when the campaign was over, what did he say? He said, go run for school board. Go run for the county board. Go run for delegate. Go run for Congress. He told us to go out and seize destiny of this political landscape. And little by little, there are probably hundreds, maybe thousands of Americans who are in positions of political leadership today because of what he suggested all those years ago. And then we made him Democratic Party chair, the DNC chair. And once again, there was the power of long-term thinking. For example, the thing that I liked best was, it was Howard Dean who said, we're no longer going to write off Wyoming and Idaho and Texas and Virginia. He's going to say we need a 50-state strategy. Who cares that Lyndon Johnson was the last one that wasn't Virginia? We need a 50-state strategy. He got in a little trouble with Rahm Emanuel in 2006. Rahm wanted to focus just on the races we could win. Howard wanted to focus on 50 states. And guess what? We took back the House of Delegates, House of Representatives. 2 years later, there are many who wanted to focus just on a few things, but some young senator named Barack Obama and some young campaign functionary named David Plouffe said, we should listen to our DNC chair and see how many, if we can maybe get more delegates in Idaho than the opposition gets in New Jersey, and many other things. And we got a Democratic president, the first one to win more than 50% of the vote in a generation. Ladies and gentlemen, the best long-term thinker I know, my role model, Governor Howard Dean.